Thanksgiving is supposed to be about gratitude, family gathered, hands clasped, hearts full. But that year, my sister reminded me just how sharp cruelty can be. I had brought flowers, rare orchids, carefully arranged, chosen with love and care. They weren't just decoration, they were a gift, a gesture of respect for our family's table. But as I set them down, she wrinkled her nose, lifted the vase, and carried it straight to the trash. The room chuckled nervously. I stood frozen, humiliated. She thought she had made her point. But the $7,500 receipt for those flowers told a very different story. The morning of Thanksgiving, I had driven across town to pick up the arrangement. The florist handed me the vase with both hands, whispering, "These orchids came in special. They're rare, fragile, and worth every penny, $7,500. I didn't hesitate. My sister loved to host, and I wanted to show her that I valued her efforts. Flowers fade, yes, but the memory of generosity lasts longer. At least, I thought it did. When I arrived, the house was already buzzing. Children ran through the halls, cousins crowded the kitchen. I slipped quietly to the dining room and placed the vase at the center of the long table. The blossoms glowed under the chandelier, their petals like painted silk. "Beautiful," Aunt Margaret whispered. "They make the whole room." But then my sister appeared. Her smile faltered when she saw the arrangement. She tilted her head, eyes narrowing. "Who brought these?" she asked, though she knew. "I did," I said softly. Without a word, she marched across the room, lifted the vase with both hands, and carried it out. I thought she was moving it to another table. But then I heard the clang of glass, the gasp of relatives, and the unmistakable sound of the trash lid slamming shut. Gasps rippled. Cousins exchanged uneasy glances. A child whispered, "She threw them away." Heat rushed to my face. I stood rooted to the floor, my throat tight. "Too much clutter on the table," she said airily, brushing her hands. "We don't need them." The room chuckled nervously, trying to move on, but I couldn't. I sat down silently, staring at my empty hands. She thought she had dismissed me, erased my gesture, but what she didn't know was that folded neatly in my purse was the proof of exactly what those flowers were worth. And when the right moment came, that receipt would speak louder than any insult. The laughter and chatter carried on, but I barely tasted the turkey on my plate. My mind wasn't at the table. It was drifting through years of slights, each one like a thorn. It wasn't the first time my sister had brushed me aside. I remembered the Christmas when I brought homemade pies, only for her to keep them in the kitchen, serving store-bought desserts instead. I remembered the summer reunion when I offered to help decorate, but she told me, "Just sit down, you'll only get in the way." And I remembered the sharpest one of all, when our mother passed, and she spoke over me at the service, making it sound as though I had done nothing to care for her. Each moment had stung, but I had swallowed it, thinking peace was more important than pride. But this time, as I thought of those orchids lying crushed beneath scraps of food in the trash, I realized something had shifted. It wasn't about flowers. It was about respect. $7,500 was more than a bouquet. It was a statement, a sacrifice of time, money, and thought. And she had tossed it aside like weeds. As the meal went on, I reached into my purse and brushed my fingers across the folded receipt, the florist's name, the total, my signature, all printed in black and white. Proof that what she called clutter was worth more than half the furniture in her dining room. I didn't speak then. I smiled politely, passed the potatoes, and let her think she had won. But inside, my resolve hardened. For too long, she had hidden behind charm and confidence, dismissing me as though my efforts were invisible. Not this time. This time, I would let the truth shine, not in anger, not in shouting, but in the quiet weight of a number. 7,500, that figure would hang in the air, heavier than any insult. And when the family learned what she had so carelessly thrown away, it wouldn't be me left embarrassed. It would be her. When the last of the pumpkin pie was cleared, the room began to settle. Plates clinked, coffee poured, and a soft hum of conversation filled the air. My sister leaned back in her chair, satisfied, as though she had once again commanded the evening. That was when I reached into my purse. I unfolded the papers slowly, smoothing the creases with deliberate care. The white slip looked ordinary enough, but I knew it carried more weight than any speech I could give. "Before we finish," I said, my voice steady, "I'd like to share something." Heads turned, a few forks froze midair. My sister raised an eyebrow, already irritated. I placed the receipt in the center of the table. "This," I continued, "is the bill for the flowers that were meant to sit here today. $7,500. The room went still. A few relatives leaned closer, eyes widening as they read the bold number at the bottom. $7,500, Uncle David whispered. "For flowers?" "Yes," I said calmly. "Rare orchids, arranged by hand. I bought them as a gift to honor this family and this table." Gasps fluttered through the room. All eyes turned to my sister, her cheeks flushed. "You're exaggerating," she snapped. "No one spends that much on flowers." "Unless," I said evenly, tapping the paper, "they cared enough to make the day beautiful." The caterer, who was just passing by, spoke up timidly. "Ma'am, she's telling the truth. We saw the delivery slip this morning. They were—" Extraordinary whispers swelled. A cousin muttered, and she threw them away. My sister's lips pressed tight. Her confidence cracked under the weight of the receipt lying in plain sight. "You thought you were getting rid of clutter," I said softly. "But what you really threw away was $7,500 worth of care and respect. You didn't just toss flowers into the trash. You tossed me with them." The words hung heavy. No one laughed this time. No one looked away. And for the first time all evening, my sister had no clever remark. The truth, printed neatly in black and white, had silenced her better than I ever could. The silence stretched heavy as stone until Aunt Margaret finally spoke. "You threw away $7,000 worth of flowers?" Her voice was sharp, disbelief cutting through the room. My sister shifted in her seat, waving a hand. "Oh, please. Who even asked for them? It was over the top. We didn't need them cluttering the table, but the family didn't nod along this time." Instead, they frowned. Cousins exchanged looks. A nephew whispered, "That's not clutter. That's generosity." Uncle David leaned forward, tapping the receipt. "She brought something beautiful." "You could have just moved it. But tossing it in the trash? That wasn't hosting." That was cruel. A murmur of agreement rippled through the table. My sister's face reddened. "You're all making a big deal out of nothing." But her voice had lost its edge. For years, she had commanded these gatherings, dismissing me as if I were the younger sibling who never measured up. But tonight, the balance had shifted. "Do you know how embarrassing that was for her?" another cousin asked. "We all saw you do it, and we all pretended it didn't matter. Shame on us." The sting of those words landed not on me, but on her. I sat quietly, letting the tide carry itself. For once, I didn't need to defend myself. The truth and the receipt spoke for me. Finally, my daughter broke the silence. "Grandma didn't buy those flowers for herself. She bought them for us, to make the day special, and you threw them away like garbage." The room went quiet again, heavier than before. My sister's hands trembled slightly as she reached for her glass. She muttered, "I didn't think it mattered that much." But no one believed her. The family's eyes no longer looked at me with pity. They looked at me with respect. For the first time in years, I wasn't invisible in my own family gathering. And my sister? She sat alone, the queen without her crown, surrounded by relatives who finally saw through her. She thought throwing away the flowers would erase me. Instead, it erased her. When the last plates were cleared and the family began to leave, the air in the dining room was different. For once, people stopped by my chair, thanking me for the flowers, even though they never got to grace the table. They hugged me a little tighter, spoke to me with a warmth that had been missing for years. My sister stayed seated, quiet, her eyes fixed on the tablecloth. The authority she usually carried had slipped away, replaced by something far more fragile. Silence. As relatives pulled on coats, I overheard whispers. She really went too far this time. I never realized how often she cut her down. It makes sense now why she never argued back. She was waiting for the right moment. I didn't join the chorus. I didn't need to. When only the two of us remained, my sister finally looked at me. Her voice was brittle. "I didn't think anyone would care." I studied her carefully. "That's the problem. You never thought I mattered enough for it to matter. But people do notice, even when they pretend not to. And tonight they saw it for what it was." She flinched, unable to argue. I rose from my seat, collecting the receipt from the center of the table. Respect isn't measured in flowers or money, but sometimes numbers make people see what they've been blind to. You didn't just throw away orchids. You threw away care, time, thought, and me. Her lips parted, but no words came. I tucked the receipt back into my purse, turned and walked toward the door. As I passed through the hallway, my heart felt lighter. Not because I had embarrassed her, but because I had finally refused to let myself be erased. That night, lying in bed, I realized something important. Owning dignity isn't about raising your voice or demanding attention. It's about holding proof of your worth, standing steady when others try to diminish you, and choosing the right moment to reveal it. And in that moment, with a single slip of paper worth $7,500, I reclaimed what years of silence had taken. My sister learned that cruelty carries a price, and I learned that sometimes respect comes only when you decide to put a value on yourself. In the end, Thanksgiving wasn't remembered for the turkey or the pie. It was remembered for a vase of orchids, flowers worth $7,500, and the sister who tossed them away. She thought she had diminished me with one careless act, but all she really did was expose herself. The receipt didn't just show the price of flowers, it showed the value of respect, the weight of thoughtfulness, and the cost of cruelty. I didn't need to shout or argue. I just needed to let the truth sit there, printed in black and white for everyone to see. Now when I walk into a gathering, no one dares treat me as invisible. So let me ask you, have you ever been dismissed only to prove your worth in a way no one could ignore? Share your story in the comments and stay for more tales where dignity always finds its voice.